This episode of the Modern People Leader podcast is brought to you by Transform. Transform is the people-driven thought leadership conference shaping the new world of work. Transform is just 27 days away, and here are the 5 things that I'm the most excited for at Transform. Number 1, meeting past and future guests in person. Number 2, digging into hands-on learning experiences and interactive discussions on topics ranging from pay transparency to DEI to elevating HR in the C-suite. Number 3, recording in-person episodes with Transform attendees. Number 4, hanging out with 3,000 people leaders that are all focused on building a better workplace. And number 5, seeing Nelly perform live. If you plan on going but still haven't bought your ticket, you can get $200 off by going to transform.us/modern-people-leader. That's transform.us/modern-people-leader.
Brandon, Daniel, happy hump day. How we
Happy
doing?
hump day.
Same to you.
I'm good. Productive Wednesday.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I'm super stoked for this conversation. Daniel was just saying right before we hit record that this is the highlight of our days/week. Lately, we've had multiple recordings in a week, and this is going to be the highlight of my day today. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Before we jump into the conversation, Brandon, we like to kick things off with our first tradition on the Modern People Leader, which is good news stories. And it's just a way that we can show a little gratitude, a little positivity. It can be personal, it can be work related. Who wants to get us started today?
Happy to get us started, Stephen and Daniel. So first thing that came to mind, good news, it's around my kids. I've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and our 6-year-old, he's learning how to read, and he hit I think this is true with a lot of how we learn stuff. It's like the development of the skill happens over time, but sometimes just in terms of your confidence, you hit a milestone, it unlocks something. And for him, he hit some type of milestone last week where he started being confident enough in his reading to start reading to his little sister, who's 3. And seeing the two of them together is just it's beautiful. It's great for him. It's great for her. I love what's underneath it in terms of him building his confidence. And he's getting to give his little sib a bit of a preview into something she'll be doing too before you know it.
Oh my God, those moments just melt your heart as a parent. So that is amazing. My good news, I'll go ahead and jump in and go next. My good news is it feels like a Tuesday, but it's actually Wednesday. And we had President's Day off. And so my brain hasn't totally kind of refactored the week. But it's been a busy week for me. And so, yeah, I'm going to just take some gratitude in that we're closer to the weekend than I thought.
I'm going to go with a personal good news story as well. So I get what my wife likes to call hueva, which is just it's Spanish slang for feeling lazy and not wanting to do anything. And even though I have this hueva, tonight we have dinner with my parents. Tomorrow, I'm doing a poker night. Friday, it sounds like we're going to a show. Saturday, we have dinner that's already planned with friends. So even though I get this hueva, I'm very grateful for the fact that I actually have people in my life that want to hang out with me. It's a good problem to have too much on my plate or too many things to do on the weekend. So for anybody in my life, thanks for wanting to be around me.
And shout out to Tori for being such an amazing life coordinator.
Yes. Shout out to Tori.
So Brandon, there's so much we want to talk to you about today, but first we want to learn more about you. And I really love your background, from residence director at UT Arlington to Teach for America to venture capital. You've had a truly unique career path. And so that's where we want to start. So tell us your story and the journey that led to you becoming the Chief People Officer at Zapier.
Yeah, well, Stephen, unique is such a gracious descriptor. Other folks might consider it wandering, but our journey is our journey, and I wouldn't trade any piece of it, because I wouldn't be who I am today without it. You covered the highlights. I mean, the short of it is, but before my work life, I was a kid who grew up in the Detroit suburbs from a auto worker family, just surrounded by brilliance. right? But not in a lot of the ways that, tech where I operate today conventionally understands it. I grew up around like incredibly industrious, creative, skillful, curious people. And then as I got older, college and beyond, and especially after I got into tech, it was just so clear. I got all these signals that for all of that understanding of the brilliance that I was steeped in growing up, in a lot of the places I was working and places I was living in my 20s and early 30s, is like, oh, like other folks look at that and they see flyover country. A lot of tech companies don't even aim to recruit in places like where I grew up. And if you were so lucky where I grew up to get a job in tech, the very next thing you would have to do is move. And so I just kind of took stock of that as I was like wrapping up college and what have you. And I was like, that is so interesting. Like, there's like a lot of folks study economics either as a hobby or if, whether you want to or not, you study it in college for the most part. But one way or the other, you just get this traditional understanding of market dynamics, supply and demand. And you learn enough to know that most markets are inefficient in their own way. But what really hit me right as I was jumping into professional life is there may be no market that is more inefficient or busted than a talent market, in part because it's one of the most human of markets, right? It's operated by humans, but the thing being exchanged is like human capital as well. So the whole thing's like human through and through, both the operators and the goods being exchanged. And it really struck me as something that could be massively tighter, more well-informed, more transparent than it is, and that it would have massive impact on people. And that notion, right? That like, how could we better map what people are capable of to opportunities to do those things, to realize their potential? It's kind of been the thread through all of that, what otherwise looks like a random walk professionally. So it is true. Right after college, I was really interested in like how this could work as it relates to college admissions and college persistence. So that's what brought me to UT Arlington, which has a huge ratio of first generation college students. So that was just an amazing place to listen and learn and build, all in the service of enabling folks to be much more likely to finish college. Teach for America, similar thread. Came there, I was a recruiter. I played every role on the recruiting team you can think of: sourcer, coordinator, full cycle recruiter, talent ops, and so on. Similar mission, right? Better mapping what people are capable of to opportunities to do that thing. And then later, as a late bloomer, I went to grad school, did an MBA and a master's in education, and there too, was really curious about the future of talent markets, what role technology can play, and how do we shape a lot of these like big technological shakeups that are happening. AI would be a very recent one, for example, to benefit as many people as possible. That was the big thrust in grad school. And then finally, in 2016, onward to tech, first at a company called LiveRamp, and then today at Zapier. Happy to talk a little bit more about the journey into talent and HR specifically, but in a nutshell, that's been the walk so far.
I love it. I love it. I want to read something from your LinkedIn page that really struck me in a positive way. This is from your About section. Empowering cultures and high-performing teams are rare, especially at scale. And yet we all win when people realize their potential. In this pursuit, I draw on experience in talent strategy, user-centered design, education, DEI, finance, and operations to build systems in which people from all backgrounds can thrive. I think this is a personal mission. First of all, can you write my About in my LinkedIn page? Because it's just so awesome. And I think it's a personal mission or vision that many individuals in the people space can relate to and get behind. Was there an inflection point in your journey where like all those things, as you got deeper into your working in the people space, that all of this came together, or was this just like an evolution of sorts over time?
I think it struck me in college, and then all the applications of that big idea, right? That like, how do we make these kind of matchmaking efforts, these talent market systems work better? I just kind of developed different vantage points into that same problem. That was true when I was working with first generation college students. It was true at Teach for America, thinking primarily about K-12 education, which is another place where like, we're leaving so much opportunity on the table. It was true when I went back to school. It was true when I got into tech. And I saw it also playing out when I'd come back home, back to the Detroit area throughout all of that, and just seeing like example. In some cases of folks who were absolutely operating at the top of their game because they had been matched to really good opportunities to stretch, and then plenty of examples where that wasn't the case. And what I think is really motivating about that particular kind of mission is that for organizations that really invest and focus on this, it becomes a real advantage. Like, it's good for the organizations that focus here. It's also really good for the people who benefit from those systems, right? That work ideally much, much better than average. So it's like one of those things where sometimes any of us can kind of give in to zero-sum thinking, or it can feel like it's hard some days to find like the true win-win where like various interests overlap in a really clean way. I think this is one of them for most organizations, at least.
So if you're in the tech space, I feel like you've definitely heard of Zapier and probably even use the platform. I have as a startup CEO. However, I've got to imagine there are a lot of people out there that aren't familiar with what you do. So how do you explain the great work y'all are doing to a layperson, just like a family member or friend that has no idea about tech? What's your explanation of your business to them?
You bet. Well, Stephen, you already did the hard part. You pronounced Zapier correctly. I was interviewing with Wade, our CEO, for like 2 interviews. I was calling it Zapier, which I think is what a lot of folks call it. But you are right. It is Zapier. We've got a little device that helps us remember. We like to say Zapier makes you happier. So that's a good way to remember it. And then the other thing that's true is that the core unit of the product, the automation step, like the thing you create that like is like superpowers for your organization, are called Zaps. So two ways to remember that. But in any case, the simple way that I explain it to friends or family or business owners or what have you is Zapier is a no-code automation platform. It enables you to connect over 5,000 apps that ordinarily don't talk or talk very well to each other. But more importantly, it enables you, without having to write a line of code, to like snap together workflows across them to automate the tedium that we would otherwise be doing ourselves. And like, why do I care about that? Well, it's like cool technically, but the big upshot is that by using something like Zapier and abstracting a lot of the tedium away from our work, we create more time to do the things that only humans can do, right? Which in many cases is like that like deep creative work, that kind of hands-on, like face-to-face, like human work that I think for a lot of folks is really energizing, and practically speaking ends up being a big difference maker in getting after whatever it is our organizations are trying to do.
That definitely was my experience. We had all these tracking systems and boards where I needed to aggregate the data, use it for different reasons, whether it's updating a particular team, or putting together a board presentation. And it just like the sheer amount of admin and tedious time it took me to do all of this was just, I wanted to rip my hair out. And Zapier made it so easy to connect these systems. And if I can do it, and literally anyone can do it, because I'm not a technical founder by any means. And so love what you guys are doing. Why should we be jealous that you get to work at Zapier?
Oh gosh. I get to work with like an unusually like curious, like empathy forward team. Like, Zapier's 11 years old now. It's had a lot of success in those 11 years. And the thing that really got me here is that like, that's all in the rearview mirror for this team. Like, that was then and this is now. We've got a big mission. Zapier's mission is to make automation work for everyone. It's a pretty ambitious mission, as a mission should be. And when I was getting to know the team before I joined the company almost 2 years ago now, is when I first met Wade and the team. That really stood out to me, right? It's like this learner's posture, right? It's like, it's not like the past doesn't matter. Of course it matters, right? But it's just a piece of the puzzle. A very forward-looking team. How can we get closer to achieving that mission? What's it going to take to get there? And for someone doing people work, it's also like a really good match for a lot of the work that we get to do, because it basically implies that however good we are today is kind of tiny. It's like the small game compared to how quickly we learn. And like this notion of like rate of learning, rate of growth for a team, I think is really interesting, and also is like another huge source of advantage for companies that focus on it.
Yeah, I think it was Melissa Wernick, when we asked her what career advice she would give to her 22-year-old self. It was something around learning, how it's good to look at the past, but the world is going to look so much different tomorrow, in a year, in 10 years. So you have to keep learning. So I love that. So Kelly Keegan is actually the one that put us in context. It was on your post about the secondments program where she commented and she was like, "Hey, modern people leader, y'all need to have Brandon on to talk about this." So I know we're going to talk about the broader internal mobility programs at Zapier, but I thought we would start with the secondment program. Could you share a little bit about that with our audience?
You bet. I always like to start with like the problem statement that inspired the product, right? So the secondment program at Zapier, we think about it like a product, and the problem statement is pretty straightforward. So like a lot of companies over the last 6 months, we have slowed down hiring at Zapier. We're still hiring, but we hired a lot over the last 18 months. And so we took stock. We said, hey, our number one focus for 2023 talent wise is what we call talent density, right? So it's about like, how do we help the people, all these people that we just hired, realize their potential? And how do we enable teams to be really successful working together? And so while we still are hiring, we're not hiring at the rate that we were the year before and the year before that. So what does that mean? Well, what that means, practically speaking, is during that same time where we hired a lot of folks, we also built incredible talent acquisition team, recruiting team here at Zapier. And we saw the hiring slow down and we had to make a decision. It's a decision a lot of companies have had to think through over the last 6 months, which is we know, at least for the short term, that our talent acquisition team's throughput is greater than our hiring volume or our hiring velocity. So what are we going to do with that gap effectively? And the traditional decisions there are straightforward. You can trim the size of your team. You can lay them off or furlough. And your other option is to effectively reallocate. I suppose there's a third option where you just kind of like let folks hang out for a while, but no one was comfortable with that, like least of all our actual recruiters and sourcers who are ambitious and love learning and growing and getting things done. And so we took stock of that and we said, hey, based on what we understand today, we don't have enough information to suggest that our hiring is going to slow down like indefinitely, like for like beyond 2023. We also know we've just built this incredible team. So our inclination here, in part because we also weren't facing cash constraints, was like, let's reallocate folks to other high need parts of the business. There's plenty to do at Zapier. And where we have a good skills match to a business need, let's go ahead and do that. Right. And as we do that, we'll develop more clarity on where our hiring is going to go in the medium term, and we'll figure that out. But for now, right, we're reallocating these brilliant folks that we have on the talent acquisition team at Zapier doing what we call secondments. That's what we call like the unit of redeployment across the business.
So you briefly mentioned that you have a little bit of breathing room to work with at Zapier. Can you share what you mean by that?
Sure. There are a couple things. I'd say there's I'd call like the tangible breathing room, and there's a cultural sort of breathing room. The cultural part is just, I think, an instinct at the company that to reallocate folks when and where it makes sense to do so. This notion that we hire for some kind of core values and core attributes that are true no matter what kind of work you wake up to do at Zapier every day. And so in many ways, like when you look at then like the additional hard skills that folks bring to the table, you realize most folks at a lot of companies, including Zapier, could be doing at least several different types of work at the company. And we also know that we work really hard to find folks who are going to ramp up and thrive at Zapier. We also know that when folks choose to come to Zapier, they're making a bet on us too. And so when we think about something like layoffs, for example, it's like no company can say that layoffs are off the table. Like every company needs to have that at their disposal. But culturally, there's just an inclination to redeploy, right, everywhere we reasonably can. And then the more tangible breathing room that we have is just the fact that Zapier has been really disciplined in how it's invested its resources. And Zapier has been profitable for almost its entire journey as a company for the last 11 years. And so I have a lot of empathy for companies who, because they were facing decisions about how to make payroll a couple of weeks later, who ended up having to do layoffs, as sometimes your back's against a wall, and to persist as a company at all, you have to make really hard choices. And then we've been fortunate in that sense at Zapier that particular constraint isn't at play right now.
What a great opportunity. Like the bootstrap path is so hard. And I'm sure there's so many people questioning that decision when you see other companies grow, and there's always other opportunities you can pursue. But then, the tides change and you find yourself in a situation where you're just like perfectly situated to, obviously it's a difficult time, so it's not an ideal situation, but you're able to experiment and try things different that to what the normal playbook would be. And I feel like that's a common theme in the conversation we're having right now.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting about the secondment program that we're talking about is, as novel and interesting as that might sound, it's actually not the first time that Zapier has done it. All the way back in 2020, at the onset of COVID, the organization had the same instinct. At that point, hiring didn't slow down, it froze, just like it did at almost every organization. And same instinct. We didn't have a program as well structured as the one we have today. We didn't even have a name for it, right? Secondment program like we do today. But the instinct was there. And that's exactly what Zapier did with its recruiting team in 2020, is reallocated it across the business. And actually, we have a few folks who were reallocated during that time who found a dream job in other parts of the business and are still on those teams doing that work today, 3 years later.
I love hearing the success stories. And this time around, redeploying talent, I'm just curious, like, what are some of the stories? Like, for the people listening, they're like, well, if I do have a TA team that I need to redeploy, what kind of roles would they even be able to go into? So I would just love to hear, a couple of the stories from Zapier and the types of roles that they're in now.
Give you a couple examples here. So again, when we're doing this secondment matching, number one criteria is business need, right? Which we define as like kind of like in alignment with our overall strategy and the goals that we have. And then the second criteria is, so like where does business need and skills overlap? And then the third kind of circle in the Venn diagram is the interest of the folks who are available for secondment. So wherever we can, we are looking for, where those three circles overlap effectively. But we consider them in that priority order, with business need being the first one. So when we did that for this current quarter, for example, a couple examples of secondment. One, we have a Zapian who's been basically self-teaching as they think about a career in data science. So they're on our talent acquisition team today, passionate about data science. We have some internal kind of skill builders on that topic. They've been doing all of it, right? And doing some external training and studying up as well. We have a need for additional capacity within our data science team, and is just a natural secondment match. And so they are doing secondment this quarter in data science as part of our broader data organization. Very similar story with another member of the team, recruiter in this case, who's doing something very similar as it relates to UX or user design. Within our very own people team, we have a couple secondments where we're able to like meaningfully move up roadmap on a couple of talent related projects, including some work we're doing on quality of hire. And then we have another person on secondment who's working alongside our diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity team on some work that we weren't sure we were going to be able to prioritize in 2023, particularly as it relates to our employee resource groups. So you look across the business, at least in terms of how we define business need, those are 4 examples of matches we've been able to make.
And you said that this Venn diagram that you're thinking of, you said it's interest, business need, and what was the third one? I missed it.
Good question. Yeah, in priority order, it's business need first.
Okay.
Then relevant skills against
Okay.
those business needs, and then third is kind of interest, shorter, longer term career interests of the folks who are available.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's I don't think we've talked to anyone on the show that has been able to articulate it that way. And I think that all companies should go through this exercise of sort of inventorying the skills that are available across the entire company at least once a year, or I don't know, maybe twice a year. It feels like there's an appetite from employees to explore different paths, whether, it's because of the need to do secondments or not. And I truly believe that if more companies did this, they'd be able to more easily shift people around depending on where there is that business need and where they actually want to grow. So given the fact that you've put so much thought into your secondments, I imagine this has to be something that you're thinking about all the time. Am I right?
It is. And, we'll never claim perfection in our sophistication on this topic of like being able to nimbly shift people across the business as business needs grow and evolve and what have you. But our interest is there, and we're stoked to be part of a community of other talent leaders who are thinking about this type of thing as well. I'm part of a kind of a chief learning officer, chief people officer community where we talk about this a lot. And it's really energizing to be in conversation with a group of folks who wake up thinking about this every day, in part because it's still quite frontier. Now, organizations have been talking about skill inventorying, for example, skill mapping, skill matching, various terms, same basic idea for decades now. And it's interesting, even at well-scaled organizations, how elusive putting this into practice can be. I mean, some organizations, I imagine, have figured this out in a way that works really well for them. We are not yet one of them. So we're still very much students of this. And so while we have some of these kind of clear mobility pathways at Zapier that are effective, we are proud of them. Like, you see the examples of people whose, careers are like meaningfully accelerated through things like this, while also doing something for Zapier, which is helping us move forward as a team. And you just can't help but smile. And we also know that doing this like comprehensively at scale is still ahead of us.
It's definitely a challenge. But what I love about what you're sharing with us is that you are admitting you don't have all the answers. You're admitting that you don't have the perfect solution yet, but you're still making progress. It's not perfect, but you're making progress. And I don't know, I would love to get your thoughts, but I feel that there's a misconception that internal mobility programs are only for the huge Fortune 500 companies. Side note, like I don't think, based on, we talked to a lot of people and I don't think they figured it out. But if you're a smaller company, it's just not going to work. What would you say to the person that's a bit skeptical about whether or not they could pull this off at their company? Because there's so many benefits to this. What would you say to the people who think, no, we're too small here. This just would never work for our type of company. What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say, I think the first principle here is like, where is this an advantage for your business? Because that's the driver. Like from a skills or capabilities point of view, most organizations of any reasonable size, including 100-person organizations, even 50-person organizations technically, can do this. In terms of like do you have the underlying skills to develop a program like this? Like they're almost always there. And so the kind of like first principle is define the business advantage or the business need. Like why is it worth doing? Most organizations have the ability to do it, but why is it worth prioritizing in the first place? I think to your point, Stephen, this question can feel a little bit more challenging for small organizations because there's just so much to do and they might be running leaner than would be the case when they're more highly scaled and what have you. Nonetheless, when you really break it down, like what it takes to put together a program like this, it is in reach for organizations of almost any size. And the other thing I would say is, interestingly, if you go to the really small end of the organizational spectrum, they're doing this anyway. They're not calling it secondments or rotation or anything like that. You look at like a true startup or like a lot of small businesses, folks are wearing lots of hats and things are changing often, right? And so like the allocation of work across a very small business or team is often really dynamic, just out of necessity. And we don't often talk about that as a form of talent mobility or, skills matching. But if you really look at what's actually happening in those small businesses or startups, that's exactly what's happening.
I hadn't thought about that. And it reminds me of my first like true work experience after college, and it was with Steven. So I was coming out of college. Actually, it was between my junior and senior year, and he was looking for an intern. At the time, I think they had one or two employees. I was going to be employee number three. And I was helping, from everything from client success work. So like putting together deliverables for big presentations. I was also doing some SDR work. I was doing like very minimal marketing, eventually ran a team of SDRs. And then after all of that, Steven was like, hey, we really need to figure out marketing. And usually, if you work for a bigger B2B marketing organization, you have somebody that's doing all of the paid media, you have somebody that's doing SEO, you have someone that's doing content marketing, you have a product marketer. And I didn't know all of these terms back then, but Steven had me doing all of these things. I got a little bit of experience as a product marketer. I got some experience doing demand gen work. I was learning how to build out Google Ads for paid search back then, like how to build out ad groups and do keyword research. And I look back at that experience and I was like, wow, like I learned a lot. I use a lot of that stuff to this day. Now it's for the modern people leader, but those skills that I learned in that first work experience at a small business were invaluable.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Well, I want to, we could talk a lot about, there's a lot to unpack there as well, but I'm a big believer, and that's why I wanted to just get your thoughts on that topic. But I do want to switch gears a little bit. Earlier, you glazed over. There was a comment you made about talent pathways, and I want to come back to that. Can you tell us about the talent pathways that you're working on at Zapier, how this came about, why it is such an important area of focus, and what you're doing to build awareness around these?
Here's the amazing thing. So I'll share two examples of these pathways, and what they share in common is that both of them were in place before I joined a year and a half ago, and both of them were effectively started and sponsored by the functional teams that folks ultimately path into. And that gets a little bit back to like this notion of like, what's the real business advantage here? Going a pathway like this is actually ideated on and either co-owned or in some ways owned by the like a sponsoring functional team and then supported by the people team. Like that's a winning model in a lot of cases, right? Because the business need is inherent, right? If, to give you the first examples, we have a pathway at Zapier that is called PI, as in pathways into engineering. And that was built within our engineering team. It's sponsored by our engineering team. It is a dedicated, a person. It's not their full-time job, but someone dedicated that my team can interface with to run the program. And you can just tell there's genuine pride and enthusiasm about pathways into engineering within the engineering team, not simply within the people team. And when you have that as your foundation, like you can build and learn and improve something like that over time. And that's exactly how Pathways into Engineering works today. How does it work? It starts as a self-directed course, which was built in-house by Zapier's engineering team with some support from our people team. And folks can prepare using the Pathways into Engineering program to be a candidate for a job as a full-time developer at Zapier, period. That's how it works. And so we have folks do it every year. Every once in a while, like someone will do it and hold on to it and say, "Hey, I'll do this later in my career." But it's like one of those. I wouldn't call it only at Zapier, but it's like I don't want to count on having this kind of opportunity or access to this material at my next company, so I'm going to do it here just to skill up. Some people do it as an empathy builder. Maybe they work really closely with engineers, but they don't come from a developer background and they just want to like more deeply understand some of the first principles of software development and some of the just like the day in the life stuff for a developer. Folks have different reasons, but it certainly can lead to like full-time job at Zapier in engineering.
And is this just like you nominate yourself? Like how can anyone join these programs, even if there aren't any open roles that are actively being recruited for?
Yes. Yeah, and that's by design. So based on what folks are working on or what's going on in their lives, like sometimes there are these like windows of opportunity because it's a big investment of someone's time to like get into pathways in engineering and like do the self-directed curriculum or what have you. So it is certainly the case that someone would say like, "Hey, I have a baby on the way," or "I know that in a couple quarters I'm going to be training for a race or something like that. So now's my time." Like I know we don't have any, call it level 1 engineering roles open today, and I don't know if we're going to have them when I finish Pi, but I know I'd like to have the option to path into that job, and now's my chance to do the groundwork for that.
And how many different pathways do y'all have? So you have pathways into engineering. I think in our prep call, you mentioned that you also have the golden path to data. Are there any others?
We have a third one around agile practitioner as well. So all three programs work very similarly in terms of self-paced curriculum with a clear tie to being eligible to apply for a full-time job in that role.
Got it. So I must imagine that this is talked a lot about internally, all three of these different pathways. So what does, I guess, the demand gen side of things look like for getting people into these different pathways? Do y'all have like a Slack channel or something?
It's fascinating. There's a Slack channel for pathways into engineering in particular, and there is for the golden path to data, if I remember correctly. I don't know about agile practitioner. That one's newer. So that's certainly part of the equation. This comes up during new hire experience as well as just the concept. We're not trying to like immediately recruit folks into a brand new job that's different than the one that they just joined. But we do want folks to know that like, hey, part of being at Zapier, there are all these opportunities to like explore your career, figure how you want to like skill up or reskill, and give folks some examples at least of some of the concrete ways that they can do that. There is one complementary program that we built last year that I think is really interesting and even more easily scaled than some of these like formal, these like really rigorous technical pathways. And ironically, we call them career pathways. So a career pathway at Zapier does not necessarily come with this big self-guided curriculum to get ready for a job, but it does provide a ton of very specific context on what is a certain job like at Zapier, what are the skills required to do that job, what is a day in the life. So we're kind of like building context, because when we talk about like barriers to like making big moves in your career, sometimes it's like, I don't know what I don't know. Right? Like I hear about this job. Agile practitioner is a good example of one where we have one of these career pathways that doesn't come with this like really highly engineered curriculum, but does come with a lot of specificity, right? Like agile practitioner, what does it mean? Like day in the life, hard skills. And then we also give folks examples of, hey, like take stock of some of these skill sets. And if you don't have a lot of experience or confidence in these areas, here are some very specific like resources or ways that you can skill up in those particular areas, such that, again, in a way that's fairly self-directed, but specific, you can prepare yourself to be a credible candidate for a job like that in the future.
Got it. Okay. So let's say I'm at Zapier. I decide to enroll myself into the agile practitioner pathway. I gain the relevant skills, and I have an interest in doing it, and then all of a sudden there's the business need from the company. So where do y'all have like a way of internally listing these roles where the hiring manager is looking specifically for an internal placement? How does that part of the process work?
It's a good question. So for pathways into engineering, for example, we actually allocate a specific number of PI placements or pathways into engineering placements each year at exactly the job level at which folks are naturally like most likely to get hired into the role. So that's how that works for pathways in engineering. For the data science pathway and some of these others, which don't necessarily come with a dedicated curriculum, like agile practitioner would be a good example of that. We post so all jobs are available internally. So internal and external is like perfect mirroring of that. And then the other thing that we give teams the options to do is that sometimes based on like the functional leader's preference, they can choose to make a role available internally only. It's like, hey, like we have some of these pathways. They might know, hey, I know some people are using these pathways. And they may also say, hey, for this job, if I had to choose, I would preference someone who already deeply understands our product, really understands our culture, how we get stuff done in this all remote operating system that we have here at Zapier. And so they'd say, hey, I'm open to external candidates, but I'd like to start this search for a certain length of time, internal only, and see how many people raise their hand and want to apply.
So is it like a message that's going out to the general Slack channel, or is it more of they have a list of all the people that are already in those pathways and they're like, oh, this person would be great for this role? Or is it a bit of both?
It's more the former.
Okay.
So we have, surprising no one, a Zapier automation, a Zap, pulls new postings
Got it.
and publishes them for the whole company to see in our kind of all company Slack channel each week.
I'm listening to all of the details of these programs you're sharing with us, and I'm just so impressed with what you guys are doing and the way that you work. And like as you were walking us through the talent pathways, I went to LinkedIn and stalked your CEO, Wade Foster, and it just like hit me like a 2x4 over the head, like why you may have a culture like that supports the creative solutioning that you guys are working on. 7 hours ago, there's a post from Wade, and the first thing it says is hiring is hard. And then he goes on to describe why hiring is so hard. And I just like, I don't know if that's coincidence. And so I'm curious, this is off script now. How important is it to have a CEO that truly, like what it looks like to me, like gets the importance of solving these problems?
It's massively important. And personally and selfishly, it's one of the reasons why I'm here. This is like top on my list of criteria for anywhere that I would do this work is alignment with the CEO on not just the importance of talent, because every conceivable CEO in their own ways cares about talent, but getting down to specifics, like what do you mean by that? How do you like, if I looked at your calendar from the last 90 days, would I see that reflected in how you spend your time? For example, when you're hiring for your next leadership role, like how much of that is you doing the work, and how much of that is like the search firm you hired or your recruiting team doing the work? Like what's the ratio of investment there? And then even independent of like time investment, there's also principles alignment. So you think about these like really important questions, which, kind of exist on continuums, and there's no real judgment call or like judgment on like where you are in the continuum, but like alignment is what matters. I was talking earlier today with Maggie Roque, our director of diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity, about exactly this topic. Like one of these sliders for, senior role or leadership role, for example, might be, hey, like on the topic of managing people, especially folks who might have, at least for now, like some type of performance issue, like what's our inclination? Like, do we incline to kind of coach someone up, right? We want to build them up, we want to coach and train to the very best that we can within our influence. And then on the other side of the continuum, like some organizations and leaders, it's like it's a little bit more of a coach out. It's like, if it's not working, it's not working. I don't typically find that you can coach someone up, and they might say, just generally speaking, we'll part ways with grace and dignity for everyone involved, but we're going to part ways nonetheless. And that's actually our first instinct. That is a really important question for a talent leader and a CEO to align on. And there are a few others like that I consider table stakes. What's great about getting to work with someone like Wade is we actually did that exercise when I was interviewing, and there was, you can infer by the fact that I'm here, a meaningful amount of alignment. And I've turned around and done something similar to that as I was hiring leadership roles into my team once I joined.
And so I'm going to take us a little further off script here, but so fast forward to a hypothetical future role. I'm sure, you're not going anywhere anytime soon, but let's say the next role you have a CEO who you may not be as engaged in the details as Wade, just assuming that this post is kind of reflective of how he views the people, the importance of the people function. And so what are your takeaways in terms of how you could get a future leader aligned with the agenda that you are looking to get buy-in on, and then even more importantly, take action on?
Mm-hmm. Whenever I'm thinking about like you're basically, Stephen, as you're talking about, we're talking about bridge building, right?
Yes.
Like we're trying to build like some type of like shared understanding where it doesn't appear to exist today. The first thing I think to do is like, do I really understand what like my partner in crime, in this case the CEO, like what are they waking up thinking about every day? Like what do they feel accountable to? What are their goals? What is the board asking of them, as the CEO of the company? And then I'm looking for like points of common ground. Like where does deep investment in talent and talent development overlap with the top priorities of the CEO, or the things that are keeping her up at night and what have you? There is overlap there. But the point is, the overlap may not be well known, or may not be visible or like deeply understood in all cases by that particular CEO. And so that sounds really simple, and the alignment is not typically hard to find. It's usually pretty straightforward to find, but they are making the time to like confirm, hey, like CEO that I'm working with now, like, let me make sure I've got it right. I want to make sure like I'm here to enable you and our organization to be successful. Let me play back to you what I think I'm hearing about what matters most. And then, so I'm doing my own like humility check. Let me make sure I understand and have my head screwed on straight. Then the second one is, then I'm establishing the common ground. Like, hey, based on what I've heard from you, like we're really trying to go, and what I've learned about the organization so far, right? Like here are a few kind of principles or imperatives that are just like jumping off the page to me in terms of how they're meant to fuel, right, that agenda. Now let's talk about that. Like, let's debate it. Like if it's obvious, great, we'll check it off, and then we'll just talk about how we want to actually make that happen. If we don't agree, or if that like link appears unclear to the CEO, then we're talking about that, right? I definitely don't expect every CEO to be perfectly aligned with myself at the onset. And by the way, that works in both directions, because sometimes my understanding might be off too around like what the talent work is really meant to be in service of. What matters most to me, the thing that is table stakes, that I would never join a company or work with a CEO without it, is the curiosity and humility to like go there together, to have that like really productive debate or back and forth. It's not about, as a CEO I worked with before, once said, it's like, it's not about, who's right. It's about what's right. We're just trying to understand like what's true and what to do with it.
Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like too much in the people space, in the HR community, there's still a narrative of needing to get a seat at the table. And that to me is the wrong way of looking at it, because it implies like that we have to justify or fight for a seat that I believe is naturally there. Maybe not for all organizations, but I tend to take a positive view that progress is being made, and I believe the seat is there, and we should be shifting the conversation to things like alignment, to things like getting on the same side of the table and walking through the work that we need to do together. And again, that just might be my view, but I feel like the sooner that we're able to shift away from the focus on the strategic seat at the table into, okay, how are we going to change our behaviors and the way that we work to get better alignment? I think we're going to find that we're going to get the results that we are all looking for in the HR space.
Yeah, and when I heard you talking about that, Brandon, the first thing that popped in my mind was an episode that we had with Mirari Soto Saunders and her advice that she would give to any first-time head of HR, and it was study the governance of your company and figure out who your CEO is accountable to. Everything else will fall into place. And when you were describing the process of listening, basically repeating back what you're hearing from your CEO, and then talking about and debating the next steps, all I'm thinking is like, oh, that's just being like a good business person. Like everybody could benefit from that skill. So thanks for giving us a little peek into what that relationship looks like. But bringing the conversation, full circle back to where we started, in that blog post about the secondment program, y'all talk about leaning into your core values and defaulting to transparency. So I'm just curious, like, in what other ways does that core value of transparency manifest itself throughout the company?
Here are some examples. If anyone at Zapier wants to know how the company's doing in terms of financial performance, they have access to that information. And if they don't go look it up themselves every single month, our skillful, actually like also very good writing, like kind of like written skills, finance team produces a blog about the whole thing. What's really neat is one principle around transparency that I believe in is that transparency without context is sometimes unhelpful and actually sometimes can also be harmful. So let's say, for example, the company just through its financial statements kind of over the fence to the company every quarter and said, here's, this is it, read it for yourself. Well, not everyone reads financial statements in exactly the same way. And honestly, in terms of respecting people's time, not everyone has all the time required to read that. And so that translation layer, like being transparent about the underlying data, but also taking the time to like tell a story around that, give people the toeholds or the tools to make sense of that. For the person that wants to deep dive into those statements, they can still do that at a place like Zapier. But if you're looking for like the 6-minute read with visuals and an explanation of what terms like ARPA, mean, for example, that's part of what transparency means at Zapier. And I like deeply affiliate with that because it really, it's like providing access to data is as easy as just like sharing a file with the company. Providing access to knowledge requires more. It requires context. And I see so much of that like context building work, including the example we just shared with our finance team, taking place here. So it's probably like the number one thing I would say about transparency and how it works here.
That's really cool. As an individual contributor that's been on those company-wide meetings where they're sharing the financials and getting into the weeds of it, I always felt like I still didn't fully understand what exactly it was that they were saying. You had to do a little bit of like reading between the lines. So I like that y'all try to do as much context building as possible. And did you say that y'all even produce a blog about this?
Yeah, an internal one, but
internal
a blog.
Okay, got it.
Mhm.
Got it. All right, so let's get into the rapid fire questions. So question 1, how do you define a modern people leader? What are the traits and characteristics?
I would tie that back to something we talked about earlier, which is like I think things are changing. Like it's a really dynamic environment right now for people leaders. So I think and this is a personal call to action too. I think the skills that matter most are like curiosity and rate of learning. however much I think I know today is not going to matter very much compared to like how quickly I can listen and learn and be curious and be humble and pick up stuff in the years ahead.
Question 2. If you could go back in time and talk to a 22-year-old you, what career advice would you give yourself and why?
Oh, it would be like bet on yourself more. It's just this one I don't even have to think about. I was very timid and didn't think very highly of myself early in my career. And it's like every opportunity was like, oh, how lucky am I? Like this is it. I am where I'm supposed to be. And it was only some really important folks in my work life who kind of pulled me through some doors into opportunities I never would have grasped for myself that I ended up being able to learn and grow and get pushed and end up here. So I, in some ways, can take so little credit for a lot of what we've talked about today. Were it not for that, I would have bet more on myself, taken more chances.
Bet on yourself. I like it. All right. So last question, and this actually was inspired by our prep call with you. You were like, can you give me a moment to just give shout outs to my team? And since then, we've asked this as part of our rapid fire questions for the last 3 or 4 episodes. So last question. Do you have any shout outs that you want to give to members of the Zapier people team or even the broader Zapier team if there's anybody else?
Sure. Well, I can give some examples based on what we've talked about today. So, I would definitely give shout outs to the leadership of teams like our engineering team and our data team who have been sponsoring like a lot of the goodness that we've talked about today actually has come up from within their teams. And we just get to support and reap the benefits of that. So those are the first shout outs. I'd also give shout outs to folks like Carly Gilardi, who's our head of talent ops here at Zapier. She's been doing a lot of work on the secondment program that we talked about today. There's folks like Tracy St. Deek who run our talent acquisition team, who's obviously been sponsoring that program as well. I would shout out Maggie Roque, who I mentioned earlier, our director of diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity, who advises a ton on like how this stuff actually plays out, make sure that like folks from all backgrounds have access to opportunities like the ones we've talked about today. Colin Monahan, who's our head of L&D, has been doing a lot of the like partnership work on these pathways. And then I'd also call out Jocelyn Wright McLemore, our head of total rewards. We haven't talked about kind of compensation and benefits directly today, but how that plays out in this kind of talent mobility sphere that we've been talking about. It's highly relevant to making sure that folks are rewarded in kind for the work they're actually doing, including when things are dynamic. And her team is incredibly thoughtful on that topic.
So the marketer in me is shouting on the inside, this is a video clip. Like this is a clip that we're going to share on social. I want everybody on your team to hear your kudos. Love to hear it.
Yeah, so awesome. Some of the recent guests we've had have actually like one just was like so excited to just start sharing the kudos on our team. So also thank you for giving us a little feedback and helping us switch up our questions there. So we've been blessed to have amazing growth and amazing guests, primarily from organic recommendations. And so the next question is, if there was 1 or 2 people leaders that you have immense respect for that you feel need to be heard, who would the 1 or 2 people be that we should have on the show?
Here's the first name that comes to mind. You want to talk with Holly May. Holly is the Chief People Officer of Datavant, which started roughly 6 years ago as a quintessential startup in the kind of like health data sharing space, merged with a much more mature, much larger organization. And Holly and the team are now scaling, this just incredible company on the frontier of like how health data is used to improve health outcomes. And it's an incredible story of startup growth meets integration of corporate cultures and then like scaling a like highly capable kind of blended organization and like working through all of that integration work. It's fascinating every time I hear from her on that topic.
Love it. Love it. We would be honored to have her. So we'll definitely reach out to her. And that gets us to our 1 word or phrase close. We all just respond with a reflection on the conversation we just had, something that we want to close with.
I can go first. I'm going to say progress over perfection. I feel like that was the overall theme of the conversation. I feel like a lot of times people think that they can't do something at their company if they're too small, if they don't have enough money. But I think there's always scrappy and creative ways to try things out. And I think that Zapier has definitely proven that with your talent mobility programs.
The term that comes to mind for me is win-win, right? We've talked a lot today about like these different places where if we kind of like listen carefully, we can find places where people win and organizations win. And that's kind of an awesome feeling when you can figure that out.
Oh, so I've been stumped, and so I'm just gonna go with what I've had in my head this entire conversation, and that is Zapier makes you happier, because you just seem so happy about your job, like everything we've talked about. You're exuding the happiness, Brandon, and so I can only imagine how the rest of your employees and customers feel. And more than anything, I'm happy that you agreed to join us, and it's been an absolute blast having you on the show today.
Been fun for me too. Onward. I look forward to your next one.
Appreciate
Excellent.
it.
Thanks so much.
Have a great rest of your week.
All right. Same to
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.